People who divorced for reasons other than cheating. What was the last straw? Someone in my family got tricked into having a baby he didn't want. The wife came clean immediately after the daughter was born. She'd lied to him and said the doctor had asked her not to get an abortion. He didn't want a second child because they had a rocky marriage and had almost separated already. They ended up staying together for the sake of their children. I lived with them for a few months during a transition phase when their daughter was about 8 years old. It was the most toxic relationship I've ever seen to date. The husband and wife hated each other openly. Extremely anxious household. They would joke about divorce and second marriages in front of their kids. They would scream at each other when they'd go over to other people's houses for dinner, and because neither trusted the other, they ended up telling the child that she was unwanted. The child would randomly call social services when she was younger, and they'd joke that it was because it was a new thing that she learned at school. She would self-harm and write messages on toilet paper about how she wishes she was never born, and they'd refuse to get her care because they were so caught up in fighting their own fights about who the child would choose in case of a divorce. Obviously, she was also failing at school, despite being intelligent. I was a grown adult, but even I couldn't take it. I'd get out of the house at 6 AM and walk to the city, or just hang out in parks with friends until I had no choice but to go to their home to sleep. Ended up booking a long-distance high-risk COVID flight pre-vaccination just to get out of there. The only thing wrong with them getting a divorce is that it didn't happen way sooner. That poor child who's stuck with them as parents. The poster later leaves a small update saying that they know she is physically okay, but unfortunately that's all. I really hope she was able to get out of there as soon as possible. I was at a family reunion and saw a second cousin who I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. The last time I saw him, he was married to a lovely girl and had 2 small daughters. When I asked how they were doing, he said, in a weird tone, "We got divorced 2 years ago." Talking to another cousin who has helped him move multiple times, the guy's wife left him because he never got a job, refused to contribute in any way around the house, and just played video games all day. He said when he helped him move after his divorce, he literally carried a single box with his PlayStation. He then proceeded to hook it up and start playing while the rest of his family unpacked his shit. When her grandma died. It was her dad's mum, and a wonderful lady died peacefully. Her dad called me sobbing, saying he was a mess and needed someone to talk to. I told him I would come straight over, and then called my wife. Her response? That he was being overly dramatic, and she was with her mum, and they were just ignoring his texts and calls. His mum just died. He is sad and alone. I went over there and hung out with him for a while, and realised that if I stay married, I was looking at my future self. My father-in-law is a good guy and treated like a stray dog. They have separate bedrooms. She hates him and has made their kids hate him. Man, that's sad. I hope you weren't the only one that got a divorce. We went to councelling. She talked about the things she needed and wasn't getting. The counsellor asked me if I could work on those. I said yes. This took the whole first session. The second session happens a week later. I talked about the things that I needed and wasn't getting. The counsellor asked her if she could work on those things. She kept avoiding and redirecting. On our drive home, she said she wanted to find a new counsellor, that this one wasn't right. We went to a new counsellor a few weeks later. The first session was a repeat. So was the second. She said we should find a better counsellor. I asked, "One that agrees with you?" And she said yes. Then I was done. I don't want to make it seem like she was terrible and I was a saint. We were a bad match. This was just the point I knew we couldn't fix it. A lot of people seem to relate to this in the comments. Here's a similar story by another user. I'm also contemplating this step, and this sounds like a situation my wife and I had a few years ago. We went to a counsellor, and within the first 10 minutes, the counsellor honed in on her need to be in a constant state of conflict. The affront we used as an example was me putting the towel on the floor when I get dressed. It turned into a screaming match which ended with her slapping me, followed by 3 days of her refusing to speak to me or allowing me in bed. The counsellor boiled it down to this. Was the towel left on the ground for a long period of time? Was my intent to pick up the towel when I was done getting dressed? Even my wife answered no and yes to these questions. The counsellor pretty much told her that she needs to work harder on letting the little things go. She's so caught up in punishing every perceived slight rather than working to find a good solution. We left that appointment and she refused to go back, saying the counsellor unfairly targeted her and didn't bother with me. Now she refuses to see another, considering them a waste of time and money. Why does it seem like most of the people who consider therapy as a waste of money are the people who desperately need it? Next, I'm going to add some of these smaller posts I've seen on this thread, as some are pretty spicy. More than $250,000 spent on cam girls in 2 years. Stole from me to do it. I loved my husband of 35 years more than anything, but drug addiction will take its toll on anyone. He wouldn't stop, so I had to leave. Couldn't apologise for hurting me. Actually, he never apologised for anything. He was not a very good person. He was lazy and irresponsible and didn't want to do work while I had 2 jobs. Then, the money and time he did have, he spent it on video games. Horrible video game addiction. She was an alcoholic. Took the only new car I've ever had and crashed it into a family in a van at 6 PM hammered. Got sentenced 10 years on her 6th DUI. When he told me he married me to punish me for getting pregnant, and he was going to spend the rest of his life making my life hell because I stole his childhood. Friends, he was 24. And lastly, I would sit in my truck a mile away from home, just dreading to go home. Sometimes I cried. When I travelled for work for a few weeks, I set up the house for success before I left, arranged cleaners every week, made frozen meals, and left a fully stocked snack pantry. Even did all the laundry before I left and got my ex gift cards so he could order in when needed. When I got home, the house was a disaster. None of the frozen meals or snacks were eaten. He'd taken our kids out to eat every night. His credit card was completely maxed out because of this. He only did the laundry once and it was his boxes. Then 2 weeks later, when I was cleaning out the fridge, he's full on screaming at me that I don't know how stressed out he is, and I just knew it was over. I'd spent the last 2 weeks at home cleaning everything and trying to pay off his credit card. I was done. It felt oddly like relief. There were other mistakes in our marriage. He'd cheated and made huge financial mistakes, but just that night of him flipping out on me finished it off. You didn't have a husband, you had a second kid. I found a note from my ex-mother-in-law that I wasn't supposed to see. My ex was cheating on me, and she'd moved out. My ex asked me what it would take to save the marriage, and I said she had to stop seeing him, which is pretty reasonable in my opinion. She agreed, or so I thought. Her mother had been on my side the entire time, telling me that I was the better man and that she hoped we'd work it out, or so I thought. I went over to the apartment that she was staying at, and she wasn't there, but there was a note on the door from the mother-in-law. It read something like, "Sorry I missed you guys, but I can't wait to meet Steve. He seems great, and I just know you two will be great together." Not only had my future ex-wife lied about working things out, but her mother had also been lying to me. God, that gives me anxiety. Both of them planning her future without you behind your back. There's an interesting comment to this post. I obviously know none of the context around this, but is it possible that she wanted you to see the note? From her perspective, this would have been a way of telling you that her daughter was still cheating on you, while also not destroying the relationship with her daughter. It's highly unlikely, I know, but pretty smart if true.
The reason I'm telling you all this is because I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top. So...
Okay, time for the final post. We were together for 20 years with 6 kids. I put him first for everything. He was an alcoholic. Anything he wanted, he got. He wanted a business, we achieved it. then he destroyed it. His entire system in life was to crave attention from anyone who would give him the time of day and then self-sabotage every relationship or situation he was in. Then blame everyone else for the fallout. I supported him emotionally, financially, mentally, and physically. When I needed anything, it didn't happen. I herniated multiple discs in my back, and the chronic pain after 2 major surgeries to repair was unbearable. So I got slightly depressed. He told me that my inability to cope with my pain was impacting him negatively, and I had to stop because his needs were more important. I never achieved anything in my life except for being a wife and mother. Every opportunity I had to progress career-wise, he wanted another child, and those plans were inevitably put on hold. He refused contraceptives. Anything I tried caused huge problems. He would only do the pull-out method and then conveniently not pull out when he wanted me pregnant. He had a vasectomy, and when I was offered a promotion to management, he had it reversed. The final straw came. The business had failed 3 years prior, and he was still clinging onto it. We were over $30,000 in debt. I had payment plans coming out of my ass and every cent accounted for, so we didn't lose our house. My grocery budget was $90 a week for 8 people. I'd saved for an entire year and had $500 put aside to cover Christmas for all 6 kids and him. I never got any presents. The kids would wrap my books in newspaper and give them to me instead. Oh, except one time when he put an extravagant box under the tree and it was filled with coal because I didn't deserve anything. I got an email saying that he'd ordered over $500 worth of paint for a bike that he wanted to paint for a mate, to boost the business. After asking how he was paying for it, he demanded the kids' Christmas money. I flat out refused to do this and stood there for an hour being told how worthless, useless and stupid I was. How I never supported him or believed in him and we were all just in his way. I walked away to the bedroom to cry where the kids couldn't see me and something snapped. I literally packed up as much as I could, got my mum over and loaded myself and kids in the car with as many possessions as we could carry and left. It's been 5 years. He fought for custody, filed false allegations and charges in court only to retract them on the day of hearing. He had the shared custody agreement that he wanted, and then after 8 months, just dumped the kids on my doorstep day 1 into a week-long stay. He said he was leaving to focus on his business and he hasn't been back. He makes random calls to child protection and the police claiming I'm abusing the children. Yet, he owes $25,000 in child support. The last straw should have been sooner, but I'm glad it happened. Jesus. The piece of shit of the day award winner right here. Thank you very much for making it this far. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you have a similar story that you'd be comfortable sharing, I'd be happy to read it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.